Okay, this is the second resource video for the Lesson 3, Unit 2.2 Buddhism A-Level Edexcel course. And so in the first video we looked at the purpose of stupas in Mahayana and examples of stupas in Indonesia, Borobudur, this world's biggest stupa, and other places like Tibet. And so on. In this contrast, Theravada use of stupas, for example, stupas could house the bones of famous Buddhists, especially the Buddha, or the relics like books were often housed in stupas as well. So let's move on. Now we're going to look at the purpose of images and statues. That would include images and statues in Mahayana. First of all, in teaching the sort of, for the masses, as it were, the Bodhisattva ideal, the iconography of these Bodhisattva teaching images, in particular the Bodhisattva vow. So, the vow to help your family emerge from the forest, the vow that we find not only in the early perfection of wisdom literature, but in the Lotus Sutra, the Heart Sutra, and others, that you put off your own final parinirvana, better would be a Sanskrit word, until all beings have established on the path, and you reach Buddhahood at that point, and you help others to reach Buddhahood. That is the ideal of the Bodhisattva, either as a continually reborn human Bodhisattva, or as a divinity in the Trikiya heavenly realm, Sambhakaya. And on the left we have an image of a heavenly Bodhisattva. So the iconography of the Bodhisattva. In Mahayana, images of the Buddha's death are really quite prevalent. And they're there for our benefit, not to remember the actual event of the Buddha's death, rather to remind us that the Buddha as an incarnation or an emanation, as Shakyamuni, is a physician whose life is not as Buddha Aghosha would teach, Buddha Aghosha, the Four Noble Truths, the doctor's diagnosis and the Four Noble Truths, but rather as a diagnosis of the idea that when he dies, it is the end of a spiritual charade, and a charade that was for our benefit, because he's a bodhisattva, he's a compassionate being. He lived a whole dramatic life for our benefit, and it encourages us to take our mortality seriously. There's a developed idea of this in Theravada. Theravada images and statues are images thus of the combining of immanence or nearness or closeness and transcendence or otherness. You find this unusual kind of clashing, and this is deliberate. Samsara and Nibbana are, in Sponberg, this scholar Sponberg's thinking, coterminous. There is no Nibbana, there is no samsara. Not the conventional, but the ultimate truth is all utterances are false, and this distinction is false. This dualistic distinction is false. And so images become both pregnant with the transcendent, just as. So in Mahayana Buddhism, any being who has taken the Bodhisattva vow as a trainee Bodhisattva will be reborn as not raised wisdom or compassion. Anyone who's not realized the wisdom, compassion needed. In Mahayana, Buddhists believe earthly Bodhisattvas have partially realized their Buddha nature and achieved a level of Buddha nature, but continue to be reborn and live on earth as they have not yet attained all the 10. Here we get it, the 10 Bodhisattva stages of development. They haven't gone through the bhumis, the places of development, and developed the 10 kind of virtues of that, in the enlarged set of 10 virtues that is typical in Mahayana now. Transcendent Bodhisattvas are, on the other hand, those who have attained these 10 stages, and they manifest as heavenly or spiritual or mythical beings in this Sambhakaya, this heavenly realm. And Mahayana Buddhists pray to these Bodhisattvas to transfer merit back to them, or to help them in other ways in times of need. Look at some of these examples here. A celestial Buddha. Look at these two celestial Buddhas and their consorts. On the left is Immanence, the Buddha of immeasurable light. That's the Pure Land Buddha. Next in the statue is Avalokiteshvara, representing the activity of karuna or compassion. Now often Immanence, the heavenly Bodhisattva, is flanked with Avalokiteshvara as one of his consorts, one of his helpers, as it were. So Celestial Buddha is an individual who has achieved enlightenment, is free from the 6 realms of rebirth. Think the wheel of life, as it were, and the 12 links of dependent origination, and the 6 segments in the middle, such as and even become rulers. Celestial Buddha has a ruler. They have their own realms, their own heaven. And these Buddhas that we can pray to are understood as manifestations of the ultimate Buddha nature. They appear in the Trikaya forms of manifestation in the Sambhakaya realm. So they themselves are still just emanations, manifestations, incarnations of the final truth, the Dhammakaya realm. According to some of the Mahayana sutras, even these lords are accompanied by other bodhisattvas like Avalokiteshvara. This developed iconography, is it the Greco-Roman influence? Well, the statue on the right looks quite Greco-Roman. Is it the influence of Hinduism? Yes, it looks quite Hindu, and we can see the influence of other religions. Avalokiteshvara here, the very early Bodhisattva of compassion, mentioned some of the earliest perfection of wisdom literature. The term Avalokiteshvara, the name, is translated as someone who is the Lord who looks down in pity, or the one who hears the cries of the world. So his very name is the one who hears our prayers and answers them. He represents the power of Immanence Buddha in the world, and he's portrayed as Immanence's helper. In other iconographies, has many arms to show his power to help if we pray. Now Avalokiteshvara has his own prayer focus, his own mantra. Okay, Om Mani Padme Hum. And you're to repeat this over and over. Type it into YouTube and you'll get loads and loads of videos of this. So compassion and then wisdom, the two wings, the two central aspects of Mahayana Buddhism. You can't be compassionate without being wise, the Mahayana Buddhist thinks. So Manjusri here is the Bodhisattva of wisdom or compassion. He wields the sword that will cut through ignorance, and realizes the sort of transcendent wisdom of non-duality, and gets through, that we realize the ultimate truth. We start practicing upya. Skillful means the sort of ethics of Mahayana, so we can use wisdom and compassion to override the Theravada traditional values and other traditional values. We develop the 5 perfections or virtues, the paramitas, within this kind of wisdom. So, did the Buddha ever lie? Well, in the burning house parable, upya is the key virtue that's encouraged. Skillful means the Bodhisattva lies in the burning house parable. So fourth, another area is these Mahayana metaphysics. We've mentioned the Trikaya doctrine in the last lesson, and look at these images on the left here of many bodhisattvas inhabiting a Sambhakaya realm, each an emanation each having a lama, a teacher, who they have learnt from to get to this Sambhakaya realm. But the ultimate truth is beyond all of these in the Dharmakaya. So the Stupas as well emphasize this metaphysics. You can't really say that they don't teach metaphysics, of course they do. We see the 3 stages. And look at the eyes in the middle level of this stupa, this Tibetan stupa. The all-seeing eye representing perhaps the heavenly bodhisattvas looking down at us, answering our prayers, the eye of wisdom, insight into the transcendent world that they can give us if we pray to them. So we know the Buddha dies and it's just a charade. We don't take it seriously. Lastly then, as illustrating the Lotus Sutra, look at these images. These are images that could be illustrations of the Lotus Sutra, the center of which is the notion of emanation. The Trikaya doctrine, the ultimate truth or realm, the Dharma realm, emanates the Sambhakaya realm, and that emanates out to the world that we inhabit. And we learn this. Now look at where the emanation is coming from. It's coming from the mind of the teacher. You have to pay attention to your teacher to learn stuff. So knowledge emanates from, it wells up from. So stupas are a source of welling up. Images of welling up. In the second image on the right, a bodhisattva, or a Buddha, I don't know who he is, Prabhupada, is sitting next to Shakyamuni, fulfilling a vow of certifying the proper teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Look at this. So because the Buddha's there, it's like a stamp of approval. But now this teaching supersedes even the Pali Canon.